The chair recognizes a gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Ros-Lehtinen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last Congress, I joined several of our colleagues in forming the Bipartisan Task Force for Combating Anti-Semitism. As a co-chair, a distinction that I am proud to share alongside my pals, Eliot Engel, Chris Smith, Ted Deutsch, Kay Granger, Nita Lowey, Peter Roskam, and Mark Veazey, it is important to call attention to anti-Semitism in all of its forms and to work to root it out whenever we can. I'm also extremely honored to have been named by Speaker Ryan to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council earlier this year. As we know, it was the anti-Semitic attitudes across Europe in the 1920s and 1930s that gave rise to Hitler and the Nazis, who exploited the deep-seated hatred of Jews to take power, culminating in the systematic and deliberate murder of over 6 million Jews during humanity's darkest period, the Holocaust. In these capacities, I intend to continue to raise awareness on the rising level and this trend of anti-Semitism worldwide, and to take actions against it, as I have for many years now. The fight against global anti-Semitism must start with strong U.S. leadership. We have the means, we have the leverage, but we must be resolute in our efforts to stem the tide of anti-Semitism and to reverse it. Today, Mr. Speaker, we hear about the dangers of anti-Semitism across the world and how in many places Jews are being targeted in an alarmingly increasing trend. But I want to highlight an area that needs to be brought into greater focus when we discuss combating global anti-Semitism. It's something that an old friend of mine, Natan Sharansky, so succinctly and astutely described. Natan and I have had the opportunities to discuss everything from anti-Semitism to oppression in Cuba, my native homeland, and in Russia, and his insight is extremely valuable. What Sharansky has helped define is the new anti-Semitism and what he calls the 3 Ds: double standards, demonization, and delegitimization. And I think the clearest example today of Natan's 3 Ds can be seen, unfortunately, at the United Nations with its anti-Israel, anti-Semitic agenda, most notably at bodies like UNESCO, UNRWA, and the UN Human Rights Council, UNHRC, and everywhere. All of these clearly exhibit the double standards, condemning Israel based on faulty or illegitimate claims while ignoring the very real problems of other member states. Israel is repeatedly and singularly isolated, targeted, and demonized. And of course, there is no other nation that is subject to the efforts of delegitimization or its existence like Israel. So what do we need to do? Well, we have to look around at what agencies are doing. The efforts at UNESCO to erase Jewish historical and cultural ties to their ancient homeland, Jerusalem, have been appalling. The move by the Human Rights Council to establish a blacklist to target individuals and entities that do business with Israel, legitimizing the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, BDS, and the efforts to take Israel to the International Criminal Court or to force Israel to agree to a one-sided peace plan, these all reach the height of delegitimization. And all of this has taken place at the United Nations, the body that was forged in the aftermath of the Holocaust and World War II. We need to fight the scourge of anti-Semitism on all fronts, Mr. Speaker, and not just at the UN. But if we fail to reverse the systematic and endemic anti-Semitism at the UN, we're going to have a hard time achieving much success in any of our other endeavors. That is why I will introduce a bill soon that addresses these problems at the UN, and I urge my colleagues to join me in an effort to defeat the intolerance wherever and whenever it appears. Anti-Semitism is one of the world's oldest forms of hatred, and for too long has gone unaddressed. We have a responsibility to the Jewish communities worldwide, and we have a responsibility to ourselves to root out this hatred in all of its forms, once and for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman